How about that Cowboys win? How about them Cowboys? The Dallas Cowboys are 1-1 after 2 weeks of the NFL season. And boy, oh boy, was this a shocking one. The Cowboys went into week 2 without Dak Prescott. They went in there without Tyron Smith, without Michael Gallup, Cowboys walked away with a win versus the reigning, defending AFC champions, the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll talk about how it happened. We'll talk about the primetime performer of the week. And we also have 2 apologies in store. 2 apologies for the Dallas Cowboys in store tonight on the show. And I think we all need to sign up for these apologies, all right? It will be sort of an apology form, and we will do it collectively as to not feel bad about it, because it's something to feel good about. We'll talk about that and much more on tonight's episode of ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Share the stream. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, let your friends know about Primetime by hitting that like button, because every thumbs up puts this show in front of more Cowboys fans as we continue to grow the ADC Sports community and, of course, the Primetime community. Let me shout out some people here in the YouTube chat and in the Facebook chat. King Element, what is up? He says, back in here thinking I was late for Mo and I was wrong. I usually, when there's a primetime game going on, I usually wait a little bit, or either I start at the end of the first quarter or I start a little bit towards halftime just to give you some time to tune into the primetime game. Kenneth Fraser, we've got Kenneth over at Facebook. We've got Abram, Todd, 6 to midnight. A lot of people here on tonight's show. Gregory saying Mo is going to be up past his bedtime tonight. Maybe that will be the case indeed. Great game from the Cowboys, and we'll break it down here on ADC Sports. But now that more of us are here, let's get ready to start this show officially. Here we go. What is up, everyone, and welcome into ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network. With a lot more content coming your way, make sure you can check out adcsports.com/Dallas. And of course, Primetime, as always, is brought to you by our friends over at Freeman Mazda. We will talk more about them and the ride of the week in a few moments here on the show. But before we do any of that, the Cowboys are 1-1. 1 win, 1 loss. Let me know in the comments what is one word to describe the Cowboys' first win of the season for you. Let me know your takes on that. What is one word to describe the Cowboys' first win of the season? Kenneth Fraser pointing out Cooper Rush's work. Man, Cooper Rush off to a great start as a starter. He is 2-0 in his career, right? Of course, the first win came in 2021, but we'll talk more about that. And you know, spoiler alert, Cooper Rush will probably be involved in the apologies that we have later in the show. Tots is solid. Let's see, surprising. 500 says Charlene Evans. I like that one. Delicious. Complimentary says Todd. Outstanding says Kristen. Gregory says great. John says Sachs. I will go with revealing, or maybe we could even use confirming here. One of those two. Here's why. We've been high on this Cowboys defense since last year now. It is different from 2021, where we entered the season without those super high hopes for Dan Quinn's unit, just because the Cowboys were off. 2020, Mike Nolan had a terrible defense put together for the Cowboys, and we didn't know how that step up would look like for Dallas with Dan Quinn, because after all, Dan Quinn wasn't entering the Cowboys in the best of terms after leaving Atlanta without a quality defense, right? So we didn't know what to expect. 2022 has been different. We want this Cowboys defense to be elite. They showed up versus the Tampa Bay Bucs in week 1. They got some red zone stops, but they didn't have such a dominant performance like they did today. Even when the special teams kind of turned their back on them by going off sides in a punt, so on and so on. The Cowboys defense continued to answer the call. The one exception was that 9-minute drive put together by the Bengals that tied the ball game at 17 points. That's, of course, not ideal. But even then, it wasn't like they were getting absolutely destroyed by the Bengals. It's definitely not a coincidence that that 9-minute drive took place when Micah Parsons was out of the game dealing with an injury. Hopefully there's nothing serious there, by the way. But the Cowboys defense continued to answer the call, even towards the end of the game when Trevon Diggs made the open field tackle to keep Dallas in it, right? And Dallas got the chance to reply with a 55-yard game-winning field goal from Brett Maher. Man, that was a good game. So I will say revealing or confirming just because it kind of told us, okay, yeah, the Cowboys do have the defense that we think they have. Because remember, Jaron Kears was not even playing. And Dallas was able to get those pressures in. They were able to get those sacks. They were able to win in coverage, by the way, and more on that in a few moments here on the show, because I want to talk about who, in my opinion, was the real MVP of this game. And I will not go with a player for this one. We'll get to the players when we get to Primetime Performer segment, to that segment. But coming into this game, we talked about it on Thursday and on Wednesday. The biggest mismatch between the Cowboys and the Bengals was the coaching battle with Dan Quinn versus Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan, the offensive minds behind Joe Burrow's offense. They have a lot of pass protection issues. They spent a lot of money in free agency. They got Lyle Collins. They got Alex Capa. They got Ted Karras. And yet, they're still allowing plenty of sacks. Now with the Cowboys, of course, they allowed, was the final number 6 or did that go up to 7? Let me know in the chat if I'm wrong here. I think it stayed at 6. But the Bengals have not figured out how to avoid the sacks from a coaching staff perspective because of pass protection schemes, because of the lack of ideal hot routes. Did you see Joe Burrow towards the end of the game taking a timeout when the Cowboys were showing 6 at the line of scrimmage? He takes a timeout out of empty because he's dealing with a 5-man protection versus a heavy defensive front by the Cowboys, and he decides to take a timeout. That's exactly the kind of issues that the Bengals have been dealing with since last year. They dealt with them in the playoffs. That's why the Tennessee Titans got to him 9 times. And heading into that game, if the Cowboys were going to have a chance, it was because of Dan Quinn showing those kind of pressures and, putting Micah Parsons in the right position to get after Joe Burrow. And man, did Micah Parsons have a great game, by the way. He might have had his best game yet, honestly, in his entire career. I'm looking forward to seeing the number of pressures and other stats and watching the tape and maybe looking back in 2021 because that might have been Micah Parsons' most impactful game in his career. We'll see how the splash plays that Bob Storm, for example, keeps you track of look like later in the week. But man, Dan Quinn not only nailed it with defensive front looks, he also nailed it by just giving Joe Burrow and company what they didn't want to get. And this is particularly important for the Cowboys. Joe Burrow, this is from Ben Vavy from ESPN. He tweeted out, Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow said the Cowboys played a lot of Tampa 2 defense that prevented big plays. And of course, for those of you who are maybe not as familiar with Tampa 2, it's a variant of a basic cover 2 coverage in which the linebacker also drops into a somewhat of a deep zone. Difficult to execute because not every middle linebacker can actually pull off that role. But this is important because the Cowboys are a defense that likes to play with single high looks. So you can get a lot of cover 1 looks with a single high safety. You can get a lot of cover 3 looks, which is a zone coverage of the single high world. But the Cowboys were willing to change it up versus the Bengals because that is the way to approach a defense that has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, all of whom had pretty quiet days on Sunday. And I think that Dan Quinn deserves some credit here for not forcing the defense to play to its strengths and instead adapting to the opponent that was across from them. So shout out to Dan Quinn for that. I think that he's a real MVP in this game. I think that his defense lived up to the task, which was not easy to ask when you're playing with an offense led by Cooper Rush. And you can see it in the numbers of the offense as well. You can see the defensive impact and the special teams impact there, because the Cowboys had a drastically better average start position on offense. Last week, in the season opener, the Cowboys started in a worse position than the 25-yard line 6 different times. So they were, just nailed into their own territory. Week 2, that number went down to 1. So the Cowboys offense was working with way better field position, which was a must with Cooper Rush leading the way. And we'll talk more about the offense in a while here. But man, that was a tremendous game from the Cowboys defense. And we can shout out several players. Of course, you need to shout out Michael Parsons because he's a beast. And at this point, he's kind of ruining the primetime performance segment for me, because I cannot give Michael Parsons as a primetime performer every single week, can I? And we'll get to that later. But shout out to Donovan Wilson. How about Dono? He stepped up. He stepped up on Sunday versus the Bengals. He was out there making some open field tackles. And of course, there were some bad moments as well. Joe Mixon took him to the ground by yucking him in a run play. But overall, Donovan Wilson stepped up in a big way. He had to with Jaron Kears out as well, because the Cowboys were really they were not really playing big nickel. They were playing just their standard 2 safety defense. And that meant a lot of Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker, who should be seen, of course, as starters on this defense, because Jaron Kears is a starter, but, in this specific role that's carved out for him. So Donovan Wilson deserves a shout out. Trevon Diggs as well. Anthony Brown. Of course, they gave up some plays, but once more, they were going up against one of the best skill position groups in the entire NFL. For example, that play on that long drive from the Bengals in which Joe Burrow targets T. Higgins, who's lined up in front of Trevon Diggs, and he kind of pulls off the push-off. Maybe it could have been called an offensive pass interference, but those are not regularly called. I don't know what else Trevon Diggs can do on that play. That was a very good play from Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. But overall, this Cowboys secondary was also up to the task. Ozo Odighizuwa did his job. Dorrance Armstrong got himself a sack. So it was a good game from the defense. 6 to Midnight says Mixon trucked Donovan Moe. Did you see that? He did, man. You gotta admit that for sure. But overall, I would still say that Donovan Wilson kind of showed up for the Cowboys defense. I'm happy with his performance. Todd says least talked about play is Fowler's play that was going to be a big game. Dante Fowler showed up for sure. Todd is onto something here. I agree. Dante Fowler stepped up, which was important with Tyrell Basham, on injured reserve. Sam Williams, I don't think that Sam Williams played a lot. I need to see the snap counts on that. But he had this great game versus the run in which he showed discipline. He stayed on in the right place, and he made the tackle for a loss as well. And then we can move on to offense, right? And man, when you move up to the offense, you got to act excited, because Cooper Rush probably deserves an apology. And I think we all will, all right? You gotta tell me in the chat, truth or false, Cooper Rush deserves an apology. Let me know your take on that. I actually didn't load up that question here, but I will. Truth or false, Cooper Rush deserves an apology from Cowboys Nation. Here's why. Let me know in the comments, and I'll tell you why I believe that. But before we do that, while you give me your answers, let me talk to you about our friends over at FreemanMazda.net, because they're bringing Primetime to us, to you. And the Freeman Mazda Ride of the Week is the new 2022 M5 Miata Plus. This very special vehicle comes in at $29,500 $560. It's got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You know, I love this feature. It's a game changer. Convertible roof, blind spot monitor, lane departure warning, and a miles per gallon capacity of 20 in the city. That goes up to 26 when you are in the highway. But when we talk about the M5 Miata Plus, you need to check it out for yourself. You need to check the pictures on the freemanmazda.net website, because this is a fine sportsy vehicle. Make sure you check it out on freemanmazda.net, because when you choose Freeman Mazda, you're choosing a lifelong partnership with your car dealer. Family-owned business for over 65 years. You get the great customer service from Freeman Mazda. Once more, freemanmazda.net. Cooper Rush does deserve that apology, man. And more than Cooper Rush, I will also say the Cowboys front office. They deserve two apologies from Cowboys Nation. Number one is this whole storyline about the Cowboys not addressing the need for a backup quarterback. And I include myself among those who were behind this storyline. I wasn't sure about another year with Cooper Rush as QB2. And it's maybe an uncommon bet in the NFL, but we kind of saw why they did it this time around. Because the Cowboys have already won 2 tough games with Cooper Rush at the wheel. And there's got to be something to having a guy that's been 5 years on your offense. There's got to be something about that experience. Because when his name is called, you don't need to limit that playbook towards the most vanilla of plays. You can still ask a lot from Cooper Rush because he's been here since 2017. That's 1 year less than Dak Prescott. And there was this particular instant in which Cooper Rush got up to the line of scrimmage and then he changed the play. I mean, it was just a simple kill call, which is nothing out of this world in the NFL. But I'm not entirely sure that any quarterback can walk in and do that in the first game that he's called upon. And Cooper Rush can do that, among other adjustments that he probably made throughout the game, because we did see him communicate a lot with the offensive line. Maybe not as much as his starting quarterback would, but he does have that freedom. And maybe the Cowboys trust Cooper Rush in that way, that they prefer to just roll with him and a guy that won't limit the playbook all that much. So that's the number one apology that I believe the Cooper Rush and the Cowboys deserve. And from what I can see in the comments, everyone agrees. Kevin Roy goes with true for the question. Kenneth Fraser also with true. Cowboy Chris is absolutely an apology. Russell says, yup, true, definitely. And man, and Tommy says, at least for this week. And hey, this is where the Dak Prescott timetable kind of comes into the conversation. Because if they're right about Dak Prescott missing 3, maybe 4 games, and he's back by then, the fact that he already got 1 week, Cooper Rush, that might have been enough to make this a true statement, right? Especially because he also has that win last year. And they seem to have a point about betting on Cooper Rush. It's also not like the Cowboys need to win every single one of their remaining games with Cooper Rush at the helm in order for him to deserve that apology, in my opinion. Russell says, I didn't give him any hope, Noah Brown. Wow. Man, that chemistry with Noah Brown was special. And of course, they have trained together a lot because they have trained together a lot because you get this second string vibe going with Cooper Rush and Noah Brown. But he kind of nailed it. He had a big game. Let's see. I gave Rush the benefit of the doubt, says King Element, but I did want Tyler Huntley, so I owe him an apology. Yeah. Derek wants to see one more game. 6 to Midnight says, not from me. I was talking him up all week on Sky Show. Well, that's fair. That's more than fair. 6 to Midnight. Let's see. What am I missing? Dak Humo, says Tommy. Oh, yeah. And this conversation will start here on Primetime. We will just not pay any attention to it. Celebrate Cooper Rush's accomplishments. He's been great as a backup for now. He's 2-0, 1-0 this season. But yeah, we will not get into that conversation about Dak Prescott being potentially benched or anything like that, because here in Primetime, we have a smart show put together. So we're not going to feed any false, completely inexistent narratives. I know that Tommy says it as a joke, though. No worries there. Romo likes Rush gives him that Romo stamp of approval. So 6 to midnight. Did you hear Romo to 6 to midnight on that clock play at the end of the game? It was like he was out there again. It gave me chills. Love that guy. Yeah, man. Romo kind of nailed it with the commentary as he usually does. Some people seem to have been fed with him, but I think that's just because that's what happens with successful commentators. People will always turn to them. But anyways, that Cowboys offense maybe turned a little bit, meh in the second half. They didn't do much. But still, you got to like how the Cowboys addressed this whole thing. And you got to give the coaching staff some credit as well, because from the opening drive, they were going for it on 4th and 2. And I like that decision because of 2 reasons. Number one, it seems to be the optimal decision in terms of win probabilities and in all of that point of view. But also, it kind of injected some attitude on your team. You're facing the Bengals, you're 7-point underdogs, it's 4th and 2, and you're not playing it safe just because you have Cooper Rush in at quarterback. No, you trust the offense. And I love that from the Cowboys. They went for it. They moved the chains. We were seeing the Cooper Rush throw out of the play action. We were seeing him, push the ball down the field. And then we get the Tony Pollard touchdown, in which I need to say this. It wasn't a touchdown. It was ruled down at the 1-yard line. That's true. But that big play from Tony Pollard, shout out to Tyler Viadish. 2 weeks into the season, that guy to me is one of the biggest winners of the first couple of weeks. Tyler Viadish is playing at an elevated level. He might be one of the most improved players on the Cowboys roster right now. And that's been very important when your left guard is Matt Farniok and your left tackle is Tyler Smith. The fact that Tyler Viadish is really playing into that role has been cool. So definitely one of the biggest winners for me. And in that play, he pulled and then just buried the defensive back. If you watch the replay later, make sure you check that out on the Pollard run, because that was a huge play from number 63. And by the way, the Cowboys kind of got creative at the start of the game in the running game. They had this play in which they pulled the left tackle and the left guard all the way to the right side. And as Tony Romo said in the broadcast, that was a pretty aggressive play. They did that in 2021. I kind of need to figure out what game it happened then, but they did that with Zach Barton and Terrence Steele, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember that perfectly because I actually have this notebook in which the cover of it, I just draw some random plays that I like when I see them. And I had that scheme in which they had the pulling guard and tackle all the way towards an outside run on the opposite side. And that's aggressive. That's putting a lot of trust on your offensive line. All right, so number 1 apology was to Cooper Rush. Number 2 apology, ladies and gentlemen, as a fan base, Cowboys Nation must apologize to the Cowboys front office and coaching staff for being comfortable with Brett Maher. Maybe a temporary kind of apology because the long range stuff wasn't really our concern with Brett Maher, but the fact that he's 3-for-3 from field goals 50 yards or longer, that's something, man, especially when one of them is a game winner in week 2. So credit to them. Fair is fair. And the Cowboys deserve an apology there as well. So far with the backup quarterback situation and then with the kicker thing as well, they do deserve an apology there. Tommy says, Tyler Viadish said, all y'all fans shut up and go stand in the corner. Man, that was a good game from Tyler, and week 1 was also a good game. I cannot wait to see more from him. And keep in mind, the Cowboys have played some good defensive lines in the first couple of weeks. We need to respect what this Cowboys offensive line has done, because even in week 1, we were so depressed about the offensive performance. When you look at the replay, you kind of figure out, the offensive line was not that bad. I mean, Tyler Smith is playing reasonably well. I'm not even that sure that I want to see Jason Peters anymore left tackle. I'm not that sure. I don't mind if they stick with this, because it's been working versus some quality defensive lines. Keep in mind, Tyler Smith faced Shaquille Barrett in Tampa Bay. In the Cincinnati game, he played, I don't know the exact matchups. I'm looking forward to seeing that. But he played Hubbard. He played Trey Hendrickson. That's it. That's some good stuff on that offensive line so far. They have exceeded expectations, in my opinion, actually. So I kind of feel better about the offensive line. I don't know what the Cowboys' plan will be when Jason Peters is ready to go. Definitely something to watch this week. I would still say, I would assume that your best group of 5 includes Jason Peters at left tackle and Tyler Smith at left guard. But we'll see what the Cowboys want to do. One of the storylines to follow throughout the week. Because even though you can say that that's the best group of 5, how much do you want to mess up with Tyler Smith's development, as we have discussed here on the show? Especially the further you get into the season, that will have to mess something up right there, right? Because guard is not the same as tackle, for sure. Todd says Peters will be insurance. Likely. That's likely. We'll see what happens this week. And I think that probably next Monday, because the next game is a Monday Night Football showdown, probably Jason Peters will be ready to go physically. And that will give us confirmation on what the Cowboys want to do. Need to let this line play more together, says Tony Miles. Yeah. Because I would tell you what, Matt Farniok did not look great once more. I would say that once more he had this bad game. There was even one play that some people were putting on Tyler Biadasz, in which the Cowboys were tackled for a loss. But they're playing wide zone to the left. I don't know if Matt Farniok had some kind of assignment helping Tyler Biadasz in that situation. I think that he did. We'll see when the All-22 comes out. But that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing as well. I think that Farniok, once more, did not have that good of a game. And that's a concern to me. But I'm happy with both Tylers. Both Tylers are winners to me in these first couple of weeks. Let's see some of your some of your comments. Tommy says, hell no, we're not apologizing to the front office for a damn thing, Mo. Hey, I understand that sentiment, but as I've always said here on the show, we will keep it objective both ways. We will not only criticize the Cowboys, but we will also kind of note what they've been doing right. And so far, I cannot say that, the Brett Maher signing was bad until proven otherwise. Let's give them some credit there, and let's give them some credit with the Cooper Rush thing as well, because he's 2-0 now as a starter. So they deserve some level of credit. We keep it objective both ways. On one hand, we'll say that the Cowboys do some pretty bad stuff in front office, but we will also, hey, what's this botch rate thing, man? I'm not familiar with the botch rate, and I'm kind of scared. We weren't giving them flowers for doing their job, says Tommy915. Maybe not flowers, Tommy, but we'll say, round of applause for, what is this botch rate, man? I love it. Welcome, everyone who is pulling off a Bosch rate right now in the comments. Bosch sent us, says Brandon, hey, shout out to Bosch Lombardi. That's one of the best in the business. So I'm actually kind of redada. Oh my God, Bosch is even dropping some Spanish in the comments here on ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. I am honored. I am honored that Bosch Lombardi, the GOAT, one of the GOATs, sent some of y'all here to the show. I appreciate that a lot. Bruce says, Mo, I didn't know you were on. We're here every Sunday through Thursday night, for sure. Make sure you check it out. 8 p.m. Central, by the way. Mauricio Bosch wants you to show out Bosch and the volume in Spanish, says Professor O. El volumen, maybe we could call it like that, Bosch. Shout out to him. He's been doing a great job over there with the volume, and of course, with the man Skywalker still producing the show. So I definitely appreciate you guys joining the stream. For those of you who have not seen the show, Primetime, ADC Sports Dallas Primetime, every Sunday through Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central. And I think this is actually the perfect moment to give you guys the most important question of the day. And I am thinking of making it a rule to ban Michael Parsons from these answers, man. The question is, who is your primetime performer of the week? This is an important one because this is the first Cowboys win of the season. I wanna ban Micah Parsons as a potential answer because, man, he had a great game. I want to see the final numbers from PFF, but as I've said, this might have been one of his best career games. The guy not only got 2 sacks, by the way, the guy's on pace for over 30 sacks in the season, which is obviously not sustainable, but still, damn. But Micah Parsons, even in the plays in which he didn't get the sack, he was making an impact. La'el Collins at one point false started just out of fear of Micah Parsons' speed, probably. And La'el Collins getting a bad rep so far from Cowboys Nation. And I kind of understand it because Cowboys fans, maybe we want to feel better about the Cowboys letting La'el Collins go. But I'm pumping the brakes there a little bit. You know, he faced TJ Watt, allowed 1 pressure, Micah Parsons in week 2. So not a great way to start, especially when dealing with an injury throughout training camp. So I will just pump the brakes a little bit on judging La'el Collins on a full basis, but still, Micah Parsons took him to school. He grabbed his hand and took him to school with a great game. As I said, Micah Parsons, we need to give him some love with what he did in the run game, which I think we maybe don't discuss as much just because we love how he looks as a pass rusher. And shout out to Dan Quinn's willingness to zero Micah Parsons in as a pass rusher. I want to see the final numbers, but after having more of a 60-40 kind of split in week 1 between edge rusher and linebacker, off-ball linebacker, this was pretty much close to 100% for Micah going after Joe Burrow. Because there's one thing we knew about this Bengals offense, and that was they allow sacks. Whether it's on the offensive lineman, on Joe Burrow himself, on the lack of communication and pass pro design from the Bengals, which is clearly an issue by now, and they need to fix it if they want to be legit AFC contenders. The Cowboys exploited that by sending Micah Parsons in close to every single play. Primarily versus La'el Collins in the first half, then you open the second half and boom, he's out there versus Jonah Williams. We saw him over the middle, late in the game. So some great stuff from Micah. But let's see some more of your answers here on who was your primetime performer of the game. Hey, shout out to the botch rate people. Thank you for joining the show. There's a lot of you, man. I was not familiar with the botch rate strategy. I didn't know you guys did this, but I love it. And shout out to Vash Lombardi. I really appreciate it. And it's an honor for me that he's doing this. And of course, as always, hit the like button because every like puts this show in front of more Cowboys fans. And this is Primetime every Sunday through Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mauricio Rodriguez. I am actually based in Mexico. I'm in Chihuahua, Mexico. So that's why we do some jokes in Spanish here and there. But yeah, we cover the Cowboys for ADC Sports, and it's amazing that you guys are here, and I'm really excited that you are. Calix actually dropping some Spanish as well. He says, un saludo de la gente de Botch que nos mandó. There you go. Shout out to Alex. I appreciate you. We've got James Ronalds as well. There's a lot of you. I'm sure that I won't be able to get to all of you. So let's see some of the primetime performance instead. Professor O says, Noah Brown. Man, what were the final numbers from Noah Brown? Because, man, I did not expect that. He had some numbers up there. Final number, 91 yards, 5 catches and 1 touchdown. CeeDee Lamb with 75 yards himself. So those are 2 games for Cooper Rush in which he not only has won, but also has had 2 receivers step up, or he has connected with 2 receivers in a big way. Because 1 for 75 and another for 91 yards, those are some legit numbers from Cooper. Parsons says 6 to midnight. Noah Brown, a lot of people are going with Noah here. Brett Maher from Roshan, George, and Tommy. Gotta be Cooper, says Cowboys Chris. People also giving Cooper Rush some love here. K-Money as well. Donovan Wilson says Big Sarge 31. And we talked about Donovan Wilson earlier on the show. Loved his game. I know that Joe Mixon made him look bad on that 1 rep. But overall, open field tackling was on point from Donovan Wilson. And even early in the game, there was this screen pass towards the left from the Bengals. Donovan Wilson sniffed that out pretty quickly, and he made the open field tackle as well. I loved his game. LVE, get some love from Brandon. Anthony Brown, 6 to Midnight, says, I want to see the numbers of those lined up to versus Jamar Chase. I know that Trevon Diggs got that, I think that six routes versus Jamar Chase and 3 catches and 6 yards or something like that was the number from PFF. But look at the numbers from the Bengals receivers. 71 yards from T. Higgins, 54 from Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon is the number 3 guy with 26 yards. This Cowboys secondary definitely did its job. And of course, 6 to Midnight is 100% right here. Stats do not always tell the whole story. They don't. And as always, you know that more or less on Tuesday, Wednesday, we get that all 22 and we talk about it. We kind of break it down, share some additional takeaways. Bruce says, Mo, did you hear Joe Burrow yelling no empty sets because he wanted someone in to block for him? Says Bruce. Yeah, I did. And actually, for those of you who are just joining here the show, and we'll do this especially because of all of the Bosch rate people, we were talking about one of my favorite moments of this game, which was 3rd and 4, most important drive of the game for the Bengals. And the guy called a timeout because he was an empty. The Cowboys had about 6 people at the line of scrimmage. And I'm pretty sure that Joe Burrow was taken back to the divisional round of last year's playoff when the Tennessee Titans got him 9 times. He was taken back in time and he decided, you know what? Screw this. I'm taking a timeout instead. And then next play, you get a running back in here to protect me. So I agree with Bruce, and so happy that the Cowboys were able to exploit what is clearly the biggest weakness for the Bengals. And I've been covering the Bengals for ADC Sports as well over the last couple of months. And it's clear that this is something that might even keep them out of legit AFC contention if it is not fixed quickly. Because, yeah, they spend a lot of money on offensive linemen, but they still need to figure out communication issues on their pass pro schemes. They still need to have better hot routes because at times when Joe Burrow is running empty sets, and the Bengals are one of the teams that uses the most empty sets in the league, they will not have viable hot routes at his disposal. And that's, of course, an obvious problem. Gracias a Voch Lombardi. This is Tommy915. Yeah, man, I'm really excited about this. Thank you for sure. Noah Brown being the most productive wide receiver is crazy, says Kyle. It is. And by the way, no Jalen Tolbert once more. Not that it is any surprise, but still, we're wondering what's going on with Jalen Tolbert. I know that Mike McCarthy said that special teams is the reason why he is not active. I don't buy it because either A, that's kind of a sucky reason when you do not have a lot of talent at wide receiver right now, and you kind of should prioritize having talent at wide receiver, even though special teams matter. I think having wide receivers matters the most, though. So I don't buy that. I think that it's something else. I think that it's maybe just true level as a player right now, where I know that Skywalker still talked about the playbook being a potential issue. Of course, we don't really know. But yeah, I'm weirded out by the whole Jalen Tolbert thing. 6 to Midnight says, is the Cowboys your favorite team? Oh, I know you said you cover the other teams, so now I'm curious. Oh, man, the Cowboys have been my life since I can remember. So, yeah, I can confirm that 100%. Hit him with the Viva Mexico, cabrones, Mo, says Tommy915. There you go. Yeah, Independence Weekend for Mexico. And, hey, big Canelo win as well on Saturday night versus Triple G. The fight didn't even get going until the 8th round because Canelo was destroying 40-year-old Triple G. Still, I always enjoy watching Canelo fight. Anthony Barr, says Professor O, another standout. He had a strong game for sure. There was this tackle for a loss in which he just shot through the V-gap. I believe that was a V-gap. Need to double-check that one. But he just shot right through it at 100 miles per hour and got the tackle. Anthony Barr easing his way into the linebacker room. And I think, and let me reach out here for my notes because I have my notepad here. But I think that that's one of the reasons why Jabril Cox is inactive as well. Devin Harper, of course, and Luke Gifford. Shout out to Luke Gifford, the fullback, by the way. Just remember that. Why didn't we mention it before? Look, Gifford was in there at the fullback for the Cowboys. Of course, no Connor McGovern, so you don't have a Mac package at your disposal. The Cowboys just said, let's get a linebacker in there. And the guy to do that was Luke Gifford, so shout out to him. But they provide value on special teams. Jabril Cox probably doesn't, so that's why he's being a healthy scratch so far. Maybe surprising. And of course, he's also, dealing with some sort of injury as well. So that makes sense. But Anthony Barr showing up kind of eases our minds about Cox being inactive. Mexicans taking double Jesus King element. Barr deserves praise alone because he's the reason Micah has been unleashed since 6 to midnight. That's a great point. We were excited about Anthony Barr getting signed to the Cowboys because of what it would mean for Micah. And 6 to midnight makes a great point. We saw evidence of those discussions that we had in August because Micah pretty much played edge rusher the whole game in week 2. Kyle says, I'm just a normal citizen over here. Our practice squad passing combination rush to Brown won the game for us. Man, great game. Let me see if I'm missing something that I want to talk about. Turpin. Props to Kevontae Turpin. You guys know that I wasn't super happy about Turpin last week. I don't think anyone was. We didn't see pretty much anything from his return game. This time we did. Especially two returns that he made, one of which was late in the game when it mattered the most. And Kevontae Turpin was able to show up his returning skills. We already shouted out Sam Williams, Donovan, Pollard, Viadish. So yeah, BS flag in one of the opening drives for sure. That was definitely not a unnecessary roughness worthy penalty. You guys know what I'm talking about. And then I am so glad that they picked up the flag for Leighton Vander Esch versus Hayden Hurst, because to me that wasn't a defenseless receiver. If you look at the replay, it seems to me that Hayden Hurst is actually taking a step which kind of keeps him from being a defenseless receiver that's just falling towards the ground. So I'm pretty glad that they picked that one up. I thought that it was a great call, even though Gene Steratore didn't agree on the broadcast. Bohanna had a huge game, says Professor O. Bohanna is actually that kind of got lost for me in the game because I was looking for other stuff, I guess. Looking forward to zeroing in on Quinton Bohanna when the All-22 comes out for sure. And I will even keep an eye out for that when I watch the replay tonight, the broadcast replay. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. Hit the like button. Shout out to the Vosh Raid. I am honored. Shout out to Vosh Lombardi from The Volume. Of course, make sure you check out his show. Skywalker still in the controls over there. Really appreciate you showing up. And do me a favor. Hey, you're here. If you liked the show, if you liked what you saw, hit the like button and share the stream. We are live every Sunday through Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, here on ADC Sports Dallas. And of course, in the mornings, you can catch Skywalker Steel, 8:15-ish in his own words. Shout out to him as well. And I will see you tomorrow night. Hit the like button. And for those of you who are interested in a show in Espanol, you can also check out the podcast feed for ADC Sports Dallas. We've got Primetime, we've got Sky, we've got a Mavericks show as well in there. You can check my show in Spanish every Monday there, in case you're interested. Nah, Sky's on at 8:30, says Professor O. You don't have to do Sky like that, though. We can just say 8:15-ish. That's the way that he put it to me, so that's just the way that I am forced to put it to you. It's 8:30-ish, Professor O. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, this show was brought to you by Freeman Mazda. Make sure you check out the M5 Miata Plus over there at freemanmazda.net. And I will see you tomorrow night. Hit the like button. Adiós. Nos vemos. Feliz inicio de semana.